Hey Facebook, I am Kara, the Blood Unicorn, and I am joined today by Wes Woodbury. If you watch Netflix, you get the reference. If not, you really need to go watch Nailed It because it's delightfully hilarious. So tonight we'll be talking about his game, Die in the Dungeon, which is currently on Kickstarter. I'm going to go ahead and share the video, and we're going to wait a few seconds for friends to join us. It'll be a good time. If I can figure out how to, use Facebook again. I am joined today by Wes Woodbury. Ooh. If you watch Netflix, you get Katie Randall. Hi, Katie. Thanks for joining us. All right, so Wes, you live in Canada, right?
I live in Canada, yeah, near Calgary. That most people know where Calgary is for Canada. Maybe. No. We're north of Washington.
Oh, okay. Okay. So random side story, I guess, here. So I used to I don't want to say nanny because it was more than nannying. So I used to watch these two little boys and their parents became my siblings and family, and I used to go on vacation with them. But anyways, their dad used to be one of the assistant hockey coaches at University of Michigan, and he left there and became a recruiter for Calgary's hockey team. He still does that, but he lives in Michigan, but recruits for them, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I'm not a sports fan myself. I'm a little bit too nerdy for that, but Calgary Flames are well loved in the city.
There you go. I just got my lid on the floor. I like hockey, and I like to play golf, but I don't keep score because I'm terrible. I more or less like it because I get Brian's undivided attention for 2 hours.
Oh, is that a shot at Brian?
He's not even paying attention to me. Brian says that you're his bestest friend, which is adorable.
I enjoyed Brian's game. There's one that I played I think it was 2 years ago, Bears versus Lumberjacks. That was really cool.
Yeah! I'm happy that you liked it. That was our first big, not big game, but it was the one that got funded and was out there and people know what it is.
I related because it felt Canadian to me,
Right. I went to school in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which a lot of people are oh, it's Canada. I'm it's not Canada, but we have a lot of the Scandinavian influences, so there's some of that Canadian feel. So seeing a lumberjack and some buffalo plaid, I was yes, I love it. It makes me feel like I'm back at school. Katie Randall says that she loves sports and is totally a nerd. So you can do it too.
You can do both, yeah.
And Brian says that you guys start at the same time, but you're way cooler than him.
I don't know, Party Animals. That is pretty cool.
Thank you.
Anthropomorphic animals playing instruments. That was fun to play too.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. I'm happy that you enjoyed it. I loved that one because I like animals, and being able to create them into playing instruments was pretty cool. Very cool. Yeah. So thank you for supporting us. I love it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's fun. I mean, it's a tough thing to stay going and pumped up in game design if you don't have other designers working with you. So what you're doing does the same thing.
Yes. And you design games, but you also are creating content with a podcast, which is really cool. Brian was telling me that it's called Kickstarter Journeys podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that you talk about doing stuff on Kickstarter. So how many Kickstarters have you done then?
There are 34 episodes right now, and I usually try to do one more a week. I think I've got Joe Slack launching on Saturday. He's launching a game called Relics of Rajavahara in July. Fellow Canadian, he's in Ontario, so looking forward to sharing that one with the world. And then I actually do a little Kickstarter side quests whenever I run my own Kickstarters, so it kind of lets people go along the journey with me while I'm doing my Kickstarter. So I just have fun with it. It's great to share.
That's really cool. Real quick, hey Van, he says hi to us.
Van, hey Van.
So with that, you are currently doing a Kickstarter and you kind of share your experience on your podcast. What is that like? How many episodes do you do? What do you talk about?
Yeah, I'm 5 episodes in for the side quest. I do I did one a week, 2 weeks leading up to the Kickstarter, now in the Kickstarter. And I just think of what's on my mind. Like, for example, this week I talked about what do you do in the trough when you're in the middle of the campaign and you're not at the high or you're not at either end. So things that you can do to stay engaged with your backers, talking to people like yourself to keep the game getting out there. So I talk about that kind of thing. And about this week I talked about saying no to those crowdfunding agencies that will completely blow up your campaign, so they say. But I just try to talk about something relevant to the timing of the campaign that I'm at.
Yeah. I didn't even know that there were crowdfunding, like, I don't know what you want to call them, companies or marketers or whatever. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, whenever you launch a campaign, you'll get at least 10 or 12 people trying to advertise for you and suck away your money.
Oh, man, just trying to suck away your money. Alexander said that your podcast is super dope and very useful. And Vanna's excited to be on with you, which is awesome.
Yeah, Vanna's got his game coming out, I think, I don't know if it's July or August, I can't remember, Van, but he's got Sea Rovers, which I had fun building his rondelle on Tabletop Simulator just for fun.
That's awesome. I enjoy seeing like the pictures of stuff as it progresses for his game because it looks very epic. And I dig it. I love the looks of it. So the game
historic,
right? Which is really anything historic I'm in for. So the game that you currently have on Kickstarter, Die in the Dungeon. Please tell me a little bit about it.
Whoa, this thing, Die in the Dungeon. So this
your artwork is so. I'm going to tell you this earlier. Your artwork for this is so cool. I love it, and I feel like they're all real, and they've got like cool texture going on, and it's like. It just feels real. I love it.
Yeah, I came up with the idea when I was trying to think of a game that could really put polyhedral dice to use because I've got bags of dice. I know people that play D&D for years have bags of dice. And there's not a lot of games that put them all to use in a fun way. I mean, you can play D&D or you can play RPGs, but you don't really get to use all your dice all the time. And there's not many board games that do it. So I was trying to think of a game up like that. And I wanted to do it in a way that was fun and not serious because I'd already done Legends of Novus, which was more serious fantasy instead of kind of humorous fantasy. So that's where I got the concept. And so I sketched out some creatures and I just thought I would put the dice into the creatures. So every single creature and character just has that dice built into them, right? Whether it's in their magic or whatnot. But I just sketched it out, and then Tristan really brought it to life with that art. So I'm glad you like it. That seems to be one of the biggest draws to the game is the theme and the imagery for the dice creatures.
I like that all the characters have dices that go with them, and it's part of the artwork. I feel like that's a really cool way to tie that all in. When did you start working on this game? Like, or when did it start, like, kind of brewing in your brain?
So I was basically finishing funding for Legends of Novus, and so everything I had for that game was already out on the table. All the design was done, and so that's when I started thinking about this game. So this would have been last July, August, and then I started kind of bringing it into a Facebook group around September, just for playtesting, and everything was in early concept mode with icons instead of real art. And then it just progressed from there. So it's been about 9 months, but because it's a solo game, it was a lot faster to design than a multiplayer game.
Very cool. So, like, I was looking at your Board Game Geek, and I see that you did 2 games in 19 and 2 games in 20. So I'm going to go with that means that you probably work on more than one game at a time. How do you find that balance? Because I don't have that.
So they might all look like games. Duel of the Dragons was something that I made. That was my first game, and that was just a little card game to learn about Kickstarter. So I basically did that in a span of 3 months, built a game that was pretty easy to test and play and back, and that let me understand Kickstarters. Then I made Novus, and since then I've done a D&D adventure and a game component called Deck of Dice, but they're not really full-fledged games. So this is my second actual big game. So it might seem like I have a lot of projects, but I really only have 2 big actual board games.
I feel like even creating something kind of small like the other 2, it's still a lot of work. A lot of work. Carl Dean Cox says hi to you, and John DeCampo says, hey, Wes. Hi, John.
Hey.
I love it.
Those guys. John has
Yeah.
Token Terrors coming up. I'm really looking forward to that. Such an awesome design.
Yes.
And Mr. Carl, I did a tabletop simulator game for him at one point, and I think he's going to do another launch of that.
Yep, I got to speak with Carl. Oh, geez, when was that? Like May? Carl, I don't remember when that was. You'll have to remind me. And then John is helping out with some art on one of our games. Those are some good guys. So when you are creating a game, I'm starting to ask this question of everyone because I find it very interesting. Do you have the mechanics first and then the theme, or do you have the theme first and then the mechanics come later?
Well, for me, for this game, it was all about mechanics first. I mean, I told you about the dice, and that's kind of okay. How do I get in front of that camera? It was all about the dice mechanics first, and then the theme kind of joined probably about 2 days after I figured out what I wanted to do with the dice. Then I thought of the character board, and everything just layered. They kind of meshed together after that because the whole game had to be dice related, and then it became dice imagery, and so the theme and they kind of intertwine when I do it. My other games, I think, were usually theme first, but my theme is pretty easy because in my games, it's always fantasy. I kind of stick to that niche because it's what I love, and they say, if you're going to do something for fun, do what you love. So
yes, definitely. I love it. Now, can you show off your shirt to everybody? Because it's really cool, and I think it shows off the whole like dice thing pretty well. Oh, you're frozen. Are you still there?
Sorry,
okay.
I'm still here.
You got frozen for a second. I was wondering if you could show off your shirt because it's one of the main characters, right?
Yes,
isn't that cool, everybody? Yeah. So, like, I definitely see like the dice in there, and I like all the extra eyeballs coming out. Yeah, I think that's really cool.
The standee of it there.
I love that. What is that made out of?
This is made out of a hard plastic acrylic, actually. So instead of cardboard standees, I'm using acrylic, which was a really cool thing that the vendor had on their website. And it does cost twice the price of cardboard, but they look amazing.
Worth it.
The color stands out. I mean, I made minis too, but trying to make miniatures for a game are uber expensive. So I have some example resin that is in the Die Master's pledge.
Yeah.
And it's extremely pricey for those that want it, but they do look pretty cool.
That looks really cool. Woodward says hi, and John says that he'd wear. So I'm going to assume he's digging on the shirt, which is a pretty dope shirt. What is your favorite character that you made in your game?
My favorite character would have to be the one that was just recently released. I don't even have a hard copy of it, actually, but I can send you an image. But it's called the Die Master. So the Die Master is kind of the guy who trapped all of these lovely creatures in the dungeon and is making them destroy all the heroes. And it's basically a classic Dungeons and Dragons Illithid, again, comprised of dice. And it's not going to be a playable character. You're going to be the first to hear it. It is actually an enemy you have to defeat after the last dungeon.
Oh,
so you're the first to hear it.
What? Stop. I'm trying to pull up your Kickstarter on my phone so we can show it to everybody. And I don't know why it's being difficult.
I can send you a quick message of it. Would that help?
Yeah. If it doesn't want to pop up on here.
Let's send you the Die Master.
Maybe it doesn't like that I'm not capitalizing die in the dungeon.
There we go.
Sometimes Kickstarter is the worst. So you've got about 5 days to go. What has it been like?
5 days.
Like from the start of your Kickstarter to now? Like what have you gone through? What has it been like?
Well, it was we funded at about the 46-hour mark, so that was fun.
Congratulations!
Thank you. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a rocket from the beginning or if it was going to be a slow burn, but it turned out quite well. I was really pleased with that 48-hour window there, and it was with a reasonable funding goal. So $20,000 US is not a small number when it's a $40 game, and so I was worried we would even hit that number halfway through, but to get it 2 days in was exciting. And now we're at about 192%. And if you look at Backer Tracker or Bigger Cake, they usually give you a nice trend line, and I think we'll finish off around 50,000 US, which helps to add another creature. We got the Tombstone's The Undying Knight has now joined the creatures thanks to the funding that people have given, and there's a couple of new epic heroes that might join, and I think we're going to hit those. So it's been really cool to see it grow, and my favorite part about it is some of the challenges that I put forth to the backer community and the things that we get to share when we do hit those goals.
That's awesome. With it, surpassing your goal, do you think that or do you have to change who you're planning to do your manufacturing through, or your timeline on it? I've always wondered that.
My manufacturer actually made me this amazing prototype. So you'll see those if you watch any of the videos on the game. Mm-hmm. And so I had 10 copies made, and I absolutely love the quality that they gave. Everything from the tiles to the creature boards are nice dual layer to the standees. So
they definitely going to stick. Super good quality.
Yeah, and if you watch any of the reviewers, I mean, Quackalope has a really good close-up, and so does Jeremy Howard with Man vs. Meeple. They give really good close-up visuals, but the quality is great. I would stick with this manufacturer. The price is right, and she can scale, whether it's 1,000 copies or 5,000 copies. There's a scaling cost. It's going to work out well. And then fulfillment, kind of deciding what the best option for that is based on quantities and where everybody's backing from.
It's a lot. It's a lot to think about. I can't imagine doing a big campaign like that, because that's a lot to think about. Okay, so Brian, quit making fun of me now that I don't have 2 monitors. They're making fun of me. Meh.
Oh, well.
I know, right? Punk. Brian's a punk face. I got spoiled with 2 monitors, and he took one away. So your first game was Legends of Novus. Was that also a big campaign, a big game?
Yeah, so Legends of Novus was it has a nice 16-inch squared board. It's got 10 characters. It had 5, and then through stretch goals brought it up to 10. And it's actually scales bigger. It's a 2 to 5 player game with a solo option, whereas this is a solo game with a 2 to 5 player option. They're kind of opposite in that respect, where Novus was designed as a multiplayer game and Die was designed as a solo game, but both can mesh the other way. But yeah, it raised 27,000 US and I ordered 1,000 copies because I only had about 600 backers, but I actually sold another 350 copies or 400 copies in the last 3 months. So basically almost sold out. I think I have about 20 copies left after doing some retailer copies also.
That's awesome. Wow. Okay, so you said something that kind of piqued my interest, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Die in the Dungeon was designed as a solo game? I did not know this.
Game. So you play as one of 5 now, different dungeon monsters. And so your goal is to defeat parties of heroes that are represented by AI. And so you're like the single entity that's trying to stop the group of heroes, because normally it's the opposite. It's a group of heroes trying to stop the monsters. So it was designed as a solo game for that reason, because you want to feel like the guy that's going to stop all those heroes from taking your loot and stopping the Die Master.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Where did this idea come from for you? I got a fuzzy floating by me.
The idea was to try to flip common fantasy threads around. So there are a couple games that I looked up, what games use all polyhedral dice. Sorry, can't find where my thumb goes. And what game, I'm freezing on you again. And what game has you play as the bad guy. And I couldn't find many games that did one or the other or both. There's none that did both. And so it just kind of gelled in that way, just trying to find a way. How can you make a game in a fantasy setting, which is way overdone, and find something that people actually like that is new? And so I think both of those concepts are still relatively unique and new.
Definitely. Brian asked, how do you stay motivated designing a solo game? I think that's an awesome question, because we've struggled with this.
Designing a game that is in the realm that I love. So I mentioned I love fantasy. I love all these D&D monsters, and I was able to. I wanted to design a game that was kind of dynamic. So what I mean by that is, normally when you build a board game, you think you're going to build a board, but instead I built something that I could design different dungeons out of. So every dungeon is comprised of a whole bunch of tiles that are blank on one side and random on the other. And so I could build any dungeon I want, but it was different every time I played it. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
just going through the same dungeon. And so that kept me motivated, just being able to play a different game every time, having a different hero anytime I wanted, made it interesting.
That would make a lot of different variations. So I don't think you'll ever have the same game twice.
I think it's almost impossible unless you. Well, yeah, it is basically impossible because then there's dice involved too, and you can't control that.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you find it important when you are designing a game to have a solo mode as well as a multiplayer mode?
I won't say who it is, but I know there's somebody that is large in the gaming world that said going forward they would never buy another game that doesn't have a solo mode, and that's a pretty big indicator coming from someone like that. I don't want to quote them because I don't know if they made that public or not, but it is just one of those things where the board game is growing, but at the same time you're not always able to go with a group of people. And COVID, even outside
Proved
of COVID,
that.
even outside of COVID, there are times where you just want to have some fun and you don't want to do it on your phone. For example, in my work right now, I will be spending anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a day just on my laptop, and then I'm on my mobile phone. So it's like, do I want to come home and play another table or a video game, or do I want to actually play something physical, tangible?
Right. I mean, I think that individual is right, though, and you're exactly right. You don't want to. We spend so much time connected that sometimes it's nice to not be connected. And maybe you are someone that lives alone. Maybe you don't have anyone in your household that's big into gaming. So having those options is really awesome.
Yeah, and
I feel like I need to play more. Sorry, I was saying I feel like I need to play more solo mode games.
Well, one of the reviewers, Lance, the Undead Viking, he said he did it with his children, and his children would build the dungeon for him and then watch him struggle through it. Or they'd roll for the heroes while he rolled for the monster. So it felt like they were playing against each other, even though it was kind of a solo adventure. So you can play a solo game.
That's really fun that they got to be involved like that. That's cool. Wow. So what are you working on next? Because I'm willing to bet you're probably like Brian and you already have some things brewing in there.
Yeah, the big thing that I've been brewing I've been waiting until Legends of Novus actually fulfilled because of COVID and lots of delays in both production and shipping. It was about 2 months late, but it started hitting everybody 2 weeks ago and last week and this week. So now I can get all the feedback for Legends of Novus to see, the 600 or 700 or 800 people that get the game. Do they like it? Are they going to play it if I were to make a sequel and just get their feedback on the current game before that? So my goal is to build an expansion for it, but I wanted to wait till people actually were playing it other than reviewers and previewers.
Fair enough.
That'll probably be the next thing.
That's cool. And fair enough. Like, we experienced the same thing with Party of Animals, just due to everything that happened. We thought we were going to have the game in hand in March, and it was like May, and we were like, sorry, friends. So get it. I think it's really cool that you want to do an expansion. So what would your expansion include, like extra characters or other quests? What's up?
Yeah, so when I designed that game, I designed it with 4 spots on the board that were potential expansion points. There was a ship port, there was a cavern, there was a temple, and then there was what was the other one again? Drawing a blank, but the Demon Gate. There were 4 places where potentially the board could expand. And so I would have to decide, do I want to do all 4 at once? Do I want to do 2? Do I want to do 1? And kind of just add an extension to the board, a different path people could go on, and then probably new rewards or new creatures or new classes. So there's a lot of expansion potential in there. But the tough part with that is balancing it with the core game.
Yes, definitely. So when you are talking about balance, for people that aren't necessarily game designers, what does that mean?
That means that if you won't have a way that if you always pick the same hero on the same path that you'll always win the game, or that there's cards that will give you a guaranteed advantage and win. I mean, there should be cards that are semi-broken that make you feel powerful and help you get the win, but there shouldn't be anything in the game that breaks it to the point where if you get that one card or you take that one class, you're going to win unless you make absolutely bad decisions. So just balance in terms of classes and power level.
So I was speaking with, I can't remember who I was speaking with, but they love it when they are testing their game and someone breaks it. Do you feel that same way? Like I kind of do, because I'm like, well, at least you found out now. Like,
Yeah, my stepson does that. So what we'll do is, if I design a game, the first person that will play it will be him, because he just has a natural tendency to find the most exploitable part of the game and run with it. And he's done that with a few of my designs and helped me get it where he actually stops having fun when he can't exploit a game. So then I know that it's ready for the next stage.
that's hilarious. So we have a friend like that will like find that card and he'll be like, this is way overpowered and I'm going to use it to the best of its abilities. And I'm like, dang it. Yeah. Come on now.
Once I take that out of the game, he's like, I don't want to play it anymore. It's not fun for me anymore.
I love it. I love that you have someone that wants to test it out for you like that. So are your other household members into gaming as well?
Yeah, we played quite a few games as a family. We don't often play my games as a family. My children help me with the early play test, and then I break it out into print and plays after that and use real people that are willing to support. But for board games for the family, we'll play anything from, we've played Pandemic Legacy, we've played Clank, Castles of Burgundy, Waterdeep. There's all kinds of different ways that we've gone. Recently, we enjoyed the different expansions for Villainous. That was a really cool asymmetrical game that I'd never seen before. And I lost you again. And yeah, so just trying all different things.
That's cool. Like, what was your kind of gateway game that got you into kind of like the indie game scene, and then that made you want to be a designer?
The first couple games that we got that broke us into the bigger board game hobby was Catan and Castles of Burgundy. Mm-hmm. I think those are popular. Well, Catan is popular for many people, but I absolutely hate the robber, by the way. I think it's the worst thing in the game and makes me mad every time. Somebody always steals from me. But the game that got me into game design was playing a game of Munchkin at a local game store, because I loved the concept, but I hated to take that. And I love the idea of turning fantasy into a card game like that wasn't Magic the Gathering, because that's what I played for 20 years.
Nice. So it kind of sounds like you've been playing games for 20 years. Like this is or Magic the Gathering for 20 years. This is something that you've enjoyed your whole life, and that's really cool.
Yeah, I've enjoyed fantasy novels my whole life, and Dungeons and Dragons when I was younger. Magic the Gathering, I think, taught me everything I know about game design. It's kind of embedded in my head about card design and balancing and all that stuff came with Magic. But I even designed board games when my children were young. Like my daughter loved Smurfs when she was young, and I turned Sorry into a Smurf game, and I drew a board and then we painted. They got to paint their own house, their own colors. And for my son, I built a Marvel versus DC game where we'd go around. Again, those were simple roll and writes, but they were a fun foray into game design before it became more serious later on.
Do you think you'll ever revisit those and kind of rebrand them, unless you want to like pay for those things and then like publish them? Because that would be really cool to be like, this is something I made for my child. Check it out. That'd be cool.
Probably not. They're really rough concepts, but they were fun because they were the theme the kids liked at the time.
Right. That's awesome. Oh, Joanna, stop. You're too sweet. Thank you. So I like wasn't really into like a lot of gaming stuff until I met Brian, and he got me into it. And then he started designing games because like I have the attention span of like a 10-year-old. Like it's just not there. You get like an hour out of me and that's about it. So he discovered this and was like, all right, I got to make games that like are short enough and fun enough that she will not get up and walk away. Because we had a problem with that where I'd be like, okay, I'm done. And I would just like walk away mid-game and he would have to take over my turns. Because I'm just like, okay, bye.
So Brian, you must have won every game of Risk then.
Probably. Ryan Crow, I'm going to pop up his comment here. He said, don't forget about I don't know what that abbreviation means, adventure you wrote using Legends of Novus.
Yeah, so with Legends of Novus was a board game built in a world that I designed, and the cool thing about it is that I also have a fondness for D&D. And so what I did is you'll notice that the Kickstarter I ran after Novus was called Kismatic's Keep, and that is a Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition adventure based in the world of Novus that kind of introduces you into the dangers or the threats of the world in a different kind of way.
That's cool. Do you ever think that you'll create your own RPG since you do like Dungeons and Dragons so much?
No, because I think D&D already does everything that needs to be done, and there's so many other RPGs out there. And I have a lot more fun with the board game part of it because I like designing the components and the cool little creatures or different mechanics. And I think RPGs are more in your head than they are on the table.
That's awesome. I had to pop this one up there. Brian said that he wouldn't play Risk with me.
Why not, Brian? What's up with that?
I do not blame him. Like 5 minutes in, I'd be like, okay.
Brian, if you have anybody that's willing to play Risk Legacy with you, that is a fantastic, fun legacy game.
How long does that take? And does it require a lot of like thought out strategy?
There's a lot of dice rolling and strategy. Well, you're trying to take over the world, so there's got to be some strategy in there.
I feel like Risk has a lot of strategy in it, and I'm not very strategic about a lot of stuff. So yeah, I would just lose. I don't think I could do it. It's like Monopoly. Like, nope, I'm going to buy all the railroads, and then after that, nope, done. Like, that's all I thought out. Cool.
Right.
It's not a good thing. Not a good thing.
No, Risk is not your game then.
No. I think like the heaviest game that we've played lately, I don't know. Like the Harry Potter battle one, like the Hogwarts battle.
Yep.
It's probably it.
Yep, I played that with the family. Yeah, Hogwarts battle. That is it's a pain to sort through all the cards in between the sessions, but it is a neat little deck builder.
Oh man, we played all of it. Like it took us, I don't know, like maybe a week and a half. And we played through all of it. We only lost once. And then I made him play it again the next night because we had to beat book 5. Like, come on now. Yeah, that was great. That's a good game. That's funny.
They made an expansion.
Yeah, with Luna, I heard, which is pretty solid. I like it. So once your campaign is done in 5 days, what is your next step?
So after the campaign is done, I have to finalize any stretch goals, whether it's the art or make sure the mechanics don't sink the game, and just kind of fine-tune, make sure all the files work well for the manufacturer and get those sent off, as well as build the pledge manager. And so that all will take anywhere from 6 weeks to 8 weeks, so about 2 months. And from then, the manufacturer will take about 4 weeks to build it, which will take us probably into late August, early September. Then it takes about 6 weeks to 8 weeks to ship it to North America. So that'll bring us to November. And then hopefully, if all goes well, people will get it before Christmas. But the actual game site says January, just to be safe, because should we have another epidemic relapse, as some things are happening right now, you can't predict or control any of that. So.
No, and it would also be kind of a fun surprise if it showed up in time for Christmas. Like, you're not expecting it. Oh, Merry Christmas. Surprise.
Yeah, so the idea is I made the mistake with Novus of trying to update every time we hit another stage. And as fun as it was, it also, because it started to delay, it then kind of frustrated backers at the same time. So I'll be cautious about my timeline post for that.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I get it. Man, I'm looking at your Kickstarter right now. Did you like create your Kickstarter, or like I know that you can sometimes get other like designers to come in and create it for you? Because it is gorgeous and this takes a lot of skill. And if you did it all yourself, teach us the ways.
Yeah, so I designed I think I'm lagging a bit.
That's all right.
So I designed the layout in general, but the actual image design, so each of the different blocks, that was built by a company that David Palermo works with, and he's somebody that is planning out his own game for next year. possibly, and he wanted to get some familiarity with Kickstarter, both the design of the blocks and the advertising. So he's worked really closely with me to help bring this to life. I couldn't have done it. He also is the mastermind behind the dice tower that's in the video. If you watch the Kickstarter video for Die in the Dungeon, you'll see this really cool dry ice smoke effect around a fake mountain and the talking characters. And he kind of masterminded that imagery, and I kind of wrote the script for it.
That's awesome. I love it. That is kind of like you bring in other people so they can get to experience it before they have to jump in and do their own. That's very cool of you. It sounds like you just do a lot to help out the community because you have your podcast, you bring other people on, you share your experience while you're doing it, you bring in other people to help you out. That's awesome. And I love that. That's something like I really love about the community is that everyone wants to help each other, which is cool. So thank you for all that you're doing for everyone. It's very cool.
I couldn't hear some of that, so I apologize. But
basically, I said that you're awesome. Thank you for helping everyone out. I think it's cool that you do a podcast. So
Thank you.
You are so welcome. Do you have any advice for people that are like just starting out to design a game or just starting to like get their Kickstarter together to launch a game? Are you there? I can hear you. I don't know if that's helpful to know.
Sorry, struggling here.
Struggle bus, man, the internet. It happens. So I don't know if you heard my question, but I was asking, do you have any advice for people who are just starting out designing a game and for people who are getting ready to start their first Kickstarter?
Yep. If I actually originally was going to make Novus as my first game, and I realized probably about 4 weeks before I was going to launch it that it's probably too big of an aspiration for a first-time designer, and I got a lot of feedback and read a lot that a small game is probably the way to go. So that's, as I mentioned earlier, designing Legends of Novus. I would highly recommend designing a small card game. Actually, one I just saw live today, it might have been launched yesterday, was just a $1 print and play Kickstarter, and I thought that is a fantastic idea. I think Crimson Company did the same thing, where they built a card game and only sold it as print and play. And I think that's a fantastic idea for first-time designers too, because once somebody spends $1 on a print and play, they're much more likely to print it and play it than if they didn't spend any money on it. And so then you get some free feedback on the game from those players before you actually go full force and make a physical game. So I'd highly recommend making a small card game or a print and play and try to do something with that first before you get into something as big and bold as a fantasy tabletop game or something full of lots of components.
Definitely. That is what Brian and I did. We started out with a small game. That's how we roll. What about for people that are starting with their very first Kickstarter? Do you have any advice for those folks?
I have all kinds of advice for those folks. The podcast is all about, but I think the most important thing is don't find out about Kickstarter and then try to make a game in 6 weeks, because that is not fair to people that want a game and not fair to yourself, because you'll probably fail miserably, or if you do succeed after your success, you probably fail miserably. And the other part of things. So I would plan out at least 8 months to a year in advance before doing a Kickstarter and really take the time to research and understand whether it's Facebook groups or blogs or podcasts. There's so much you can learn about it before you jump into it. And it's a very competitive industry, a fun industry, but competitive. So you want to be able to put your best foot forward.
Ryan here has some good points. So he says, this is a reference to doing a smaller game. It also builds confidence with backers, which is very true. And then he said, be honest and transparent. I think that's really solid advice for your Kickstarter. Be transparent with what you are creating and your timelines and all that jazz. Ooh, and Michael Petrie says that he agrees with you. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say some of the nicest feedback I got about Novus, which is just fulfilling now, is that the backers really appreciated the regular updates, even though some of them weren't the most favorable updates. It was a shipping delay or a production delay or a P&P mistake, but they were just always kind and about me communicating with him to begin with and just transparent about the process. So thank you, Ryan. I actually got to meet Ryan. He was backer number one, and I happened to be in a meeting in Ontario and was able to go out and see him, and we actually played a game of Nova there. So it was really a real person back.
I'm losing you there. I'm sorry. You went in and out so much. I missed what you said. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. I was just saying that I did have a chance to meet Ryan. He was backer number one on Legends of Novus, and when I was at a meeting in Toronto, we just happened to be able to meet up and play a game, and I gave him a prototype copy. So it's cool that he's here on the feed watching.
That's awesome. Oh, Ryan, that's cool. Thanks for coming and supporting Wes. That's awesome. Well, Wes, thank you so very much for joining me this evening. Congratulations on your Kickstarter. It looks awesome. Is there anything you want to plug before I let you go this evening?
I just really want to thank Tristan for all the fantastic. I mean, this game came to life through his amazing artwork. He just took the themes that I did and ran with them 100%. Even as I'm going through stretch goals, the die master that he made was fantastic, and the die minions, the little cute dice creatures. The whole game came together with his artwork. And then secondly, David Palermo for everything he's done for the graphic design and the video. So really, when you're doing campaigns like this that explode into something bigger, it takes, even though I don't have an official team where I live, I have an online team that people out there that are just happy to help. So that's all I can say is thanks to those that support and for all the backers that have already made a pledge.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Thank you for reaching out for them, and it really does take a full team to create something. That's awesome. So again, thank you so very much for coming and hanging out with me. Please head on over to Kickstarter and show Wes some love and check out Die in the Dungeon. And please be sure to tune into his podcast, Kickstarter Journeys. Have a great evening, everyone, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you so much, Kara. Take care.
You're so welcome. Thank you. You too.